To support the actors' strike, you must simultaneously believe all contradictory information. So most Americans support the strikes. The strikes that the unions have already won. Because the unions were in it for the long haul. Except they also need government assistance to even survive. And despite the fact that every day the strike goes on, the unions get stronger, we also require unemployment benefit, despite voluntarily choosing not to work. Because as we get stronger every day, more and more people are facing evictions and seeking rent assistance.
That doesn't make any sense.
We've won, the studios need to back down, we've just already won, and we're going bankrupt. You get this kind of two-tone messaging at all points, as they try and project strength against literal multi-billion-dollar corporations, while claiming victory, saying no one can stand against them, and then desperately trying to crush anybody who even says anything about it. That's how you end up in a situation where the union is like, oh, the studios are dividing, they're breaking up all over the place, and quite frankly, they are so divided, at this point the studios should just break up their organisation and negotiate on individual terms. Because the studios are so divided, but the union, they hold strong. Nobody at all will ever break well, apart from Drew Barrymore, yeah. This is a union that's so powerful and in control of itself that Drew Barrymore can bring it to its knees just by existing. In fact, she spoke about a talk show return and kicked off a little rebellion. So then you ended up with several daytime talk shows going, yeah, we're going to come back as well. Oh, by the way, without WGA writers. It's almost like other writers do exist somewhere in the world. But watching Drew Barrymore kick off this whole beehive has been incredible, as well as the cowards that followed her. And despite the fact that they're going against the union, I actually don't know another word apart from coward to describe some of their behaviour. Because at least Drew came out and she was doing it first. I took some heat from it and eventually crumbled, going, yeah, okay, my show won't come back after all. When you fight the Empire or the Borg, anybody who stands out among the masses must be crushed.
We are union through and through, all the way to the end.
I am Locutus of Borg.
That's what happened to Drew. But there was somebody else that kind of tagged along for the ride. Mr. Bill Maher here. The guy who I believe was supposed to have been funny once. I've yet to see evidence of that time, but apparently it did exist once upon a time. But yeah, he decided to stick his head above the parapet, only after several other people did. And then when she decided to row back on it and go, okay, I'm not going to show it after all, Bill Maher pulled up his little tighty whities and went, yeah, I'm not coming back either, actually. He wanted someone to go first, so they took all the flack, and then when they eventually crumbled, he just ran after them, like, don't punish me, please.
It's afraid. It's afraid!
Even had the gall to say, oh, it was because there didn't seem to be any progress with the strike, but now they're going back to the negotiating table. I'm going to delay it. Dude, that's happened repeatedly for months. That's how negotiations work. What happens if on Friday they go, there's been no progress? Are you going to send the show back? I don't think you are. No, I don't think Bill here cared much about the negotiations. He just wanted a meat shield in front of him of somebody that had done it before he had, so that they took all the blame. And hey, maybe it's just me, but I'm not sure just how much you're winning a strike if Drew Barrymore not being with you is all it takes for you to get this petrified. And it did seem like they were petrified. Because unions rely on one simple rule. It's all perception. The only power they have is the power that other people voluntarily give them. So they have to project this false image that nobody dare stand against them. The moment everyone realizes, I don't need to be in this crap, and you don't need to be taking my money, they lose all their guild dues, all their money, and that means every single person that speaks out against them must be crushed. Drew Barrymore's very existence against the strikes proved that you didn't need to obey their rule, and that's why the machine kicked into action, desperate to crush her. Now, unions have always been anti-worker. They try to create a state of being in the world that goes against the fundamental laws of economics, supply and demand in the labour force. So what unions try to do is create a closed system where every single person is part of the union, and therefore they can just go, we want more money. But to create that controlled system where every single person needs to obey you, it means you're going to have to act like tyrants and crush anybody who isn't. And I don't have another term for them apart from tyrants. I mean, they recently had their re-elections, with the president apparently easily getting re-elected and her running mate also returning as secretary-treasurer. They got re-elected based off almost 23% voter turnout. Because you know, if you've got somebody in charge of your institution that has been systematically destroying your entire industry, then why would you be bothered to get off your arse and vote? This is the WGA, they can't even be bothered to get off their arse and work. Now, it's no surprise that they're lax in all aspects of their life. Now, I did appreciate when she said she was honoured to serve as president for another term, as these are dynamic times, and that one of her main objectives as a labour union must be to ensure that everyone has equal opportunity to work. And she promptly set around making everybody have that equal opportunity, because the writers haven't, the actors haven't, and now she's making sure that the game industry can't either. Yeah, with her in charge, you all have equal opportunity, that you're never going to get to do any work. At this point, I can understand why you wanted unemployment checks to be given out to everyone on strike, because it seems like her mission is just to make sure that everybody is drawing them. It's especially fun in games development, you know, the industry which is renowned for having studios all over the world. You can't employ anyone from California because they're all on strike. Oh, okay, cheers. Wasn't planning to anyway. The de-Californication of literally every industry because they're all on strike would perhaps be one of the greatest side effects to have ever happened throughout all of history, with how damaging Californian beliefs are to a profit margin. At this point, you'd expect them to be offering buy one, get one free offers on jobs, not asking for more money. Look, if you're going to hire someone as bad as me, I'll give you the next job for free.
I love that you never make any effort at all.
Now, there was a Fox Entertainment president who came out and said that essentially these strikes need to be resolved by the end of this month if shows can return with new episodes in the 2023 to 24 TV season. As there's 2 weeks left, it's not looking likely for that one. But it's the fear of a union that really you might call me a scab! You can't insult people with terms you've just invented yourself. I don't subscribe to your value system, and so the words that you create don't mean anything to me either. How dare you go to work, you've really offended us. I'm like, yeah, that's just an added bonus. I went to work to get paid. You getting pissed off about it, that's just like the icing on the side. And yet it's only fear that's been keeping people in line. And I can understand if you live in California, and so you don't have much choice. You're in this industry, everyone in the industry is also in the union, and so if you step out of line, you have no other group of third parties that you can actually engage with in the first place. And so, like everybody else in a union, you just have to have your lives destroyed by them. And one thing that the unions have always got is we are union together. We stand for workers everywhere. Not you. No, not you either. Or you. No, you can all piss off. We don't care about any of you. Piss off then. If you're not making my house bigger, I don't care. Because that's how it feels. That's how you get articles talking about the collateral strike damage, which is piling up. That despite a narrative about Drew Barrymore and Bill Maher, because this has been going on for 4.5 months, loads of people are being affected by it. Whether it's entertainment partners, production consulting firms are laying off people, a health fund is crumbling. But he says the people on the margins of the strike, they have no place at the bargaining table, no vote, and for the most part, no stake in the final outcome. When it all ends, someone may declare victory, and with luck, they might be able to get back to work. The union loves to talk about how it represents workers, not you, no. But really, they just follow the first rule. It's always self-interest. That's why when they were offered a deal that represents the highest wage increase in 35 years, they still turned it down because it didn't include everything. It just included almost everything. This isn't about fairness or safe working conditions. At this point, it's ideological, and how by enforcing minimum numbers of writers within the room, they can maintain an ideological grasp among everything that's created. Because if there's more people, there's more chance that one of them will be a sensitivity reader. You can't put that there. I'm offended. Yes, you're offended. I find it funny. That's why I'm happier than you are. And I think the contradictions that I spoke about at the start of the video prove just how ideological it is. For instance, we have these interim agreements. These are various different movies or TV shows which the Guild have signed off on. Oh, you can go and make these TV series or do this work. We'll let you do that without being called a scab. Like, seriously, if you're going to make an insult specifically designed to keep people in line, make it worse than that. I would tap dance across your picket line if that's all you're going to call me. Like, at least question my parental heritage or something. But despite the fact that certain people are fully allowed to go back to work, yeah, not you though, Drew, because it broke the narrative. We had Patricia Arquette coming out and going, well, if we had AI write things, we're just going to have giant mega Marvel movies. I'm like, what? I thought that's what we had for the last 15 years anyway. We've had writers for all those years, And that's all you've been pumping out in the first place. Also, I'm not sure that saying AI is going to create mega movies is really the downside that you think it is. Oh, you know the audience, they hate those mega movies. What they really want is a slow, boring character drama about somebody dying. Yeah, if they could die slowly in an agony, that's the entertainment they really want. That's why it always gets an Oscar. Does it need to be depressed? I mean, it would help. That's where the fun comes in. If you get a granny in the front of the audience to start crying, you'll do far better. That's when you know you're onto a winner. We want the audience to leave work, go and see our movie, and immediately question why on earth they spent $20 on this movie ticket. Or you can have AI making mega Marvel movies where everything explodes. Take your pick. Remember when one of the writers thought saying that ChatGPT doesn't have childhood trauma was a big advantage for it? I remember.
Dad issues.
But there was a problem that the writers' strike had, because they were trying to spin that the AMPTP were all breaking up. I could fully understand why some people call them the armpit. When you have to insist you are united, even as you badmouth each other privately and look for someone else to blame, you're really telling everyone, we're in big trouble. The studios, they're in so much trouble. I mean, they are, because they're not making any money, but that's because of the writers, not because of the strike. And even as the writers decided to start preaching, ho ho ho, corporate greed has got to go, at no point did they consider their own greed. Remember, they were offered pay increases from 10 grand to 11.3 grand, or from 7.4 to 8.5 a week, and turned it down. Some of them were offered a 43.8% pay increase from just under 10 to 14.2 grand a week, and they turned it down. All because it didn't get the minimum writers' rooms, at least according to Variety. And so, if your enemy is so weak, so divided, despite my suggestion that what's good for the goose is good for the gander, I mean, if you want these studios to break up and negotiate individually, what's wrong with the writers doing it? Why are you all so scared that you might actually have to negotiate based off your own individual talent? You do have individual talent. Right. I'm sure you've got a backlog of quality work you could bring into any job interview. I have faith in you, even if you don't in yourselves. But with all these things being true, Drew Barrymore had to be crushed. She could not be allowed to stand and bring her show back, even, and this is the biggest point, she wasn't actually breaking any of the rules. I mean, other people are allowed to bring their movies back. They can make their shows, and they need specific agreements in order to do it, because their movies do actually break the rules of the strike. That's why they had to be given special dispensation. Drew, though, never broke any of them. Didn't even need an interim agreement, and even that has to be crushed, because even the perception that somebody might be out of the scope of the union is too much for them to bear, because if one person can go against them, anybody can. And then everybody realizes the union actually has no power. And where there's one person willing to stand up against you, there's many, and they grow all the time. Now, the proof of this is really just how malicious the union was, as the moment it says the new season will still follow the WGA and SAG-AFTRA strike rules, that really should have been the end of it. We thank you, Drew, for keeping us in mind, obeying the rules that we've set forward, and respecting us as a union. It should have been the response, as at first she stepped down to show solidarity and support with the members. And because it was the first week of the strike, she just thought it would be an appropriate thing to do. But now, her staff are losing their homes because no one's getting paid, because they're all wrapped up in the union's collateral damage that the union don't care about at all by the looks of it. Now, I think her problem was, quite frankly, putting blood in the water herself. She started talking, well, I own this choice, but then goes on to say, we're in compliance, we're not discussing or promoting any film or television, and by trying to prostrate yourself in front of them, they just decided to take an axe to her face. If you'd come out wiping your arse with the WGA agreement, you would have got the same response from the WGA, but at least it would have put you on the right path, as they would have known you weren't going to break. As it was, they came out and just started immediately attacking her, that she was now on a struck show to return without its writers. Well, I mean, if they're not using your writers, who cares? Well, of course they do, because anyone who can prove that you don't need WGA writers, now you've made the entire union redundant. You've stripped them of all power. That's when I got pissed. It's not what you do, it's the perception that you're creating. The accurate, honest perception that they're entirely irrelevant. Because in the year 2023, writers can come from any country country on Earth, and they don't need to come from California. It especially makes me laugh when it goes, any writing on the Drew Barrymore show is a violation of the strike rules, when they've specifically already said it will return without its writers. Therefore, by the union's own rules, if I write something down on a piece of paper, I'm breaking their strike rules, despite having nothing to do with them. At this point, they seem to think they're God. Nothing is outside the bounds of my power. So then, despite the fact that she didn't actually break any of the rules, they decided to picket her. This was, as you can see, a very eventful picket. Yeah, there's at least 8 people there. Can you understand why people are so scared of the mighty union, the Borg?
Locutus.
But it even got better. When these 2 nice little innocent victims came along, they just wanted to attend the Drew Barrymore show. They weren't actually planning on doing anything. Oh, no. I mean, we are picketing you outside, and we're wearing loads of banners and badges and stuff, and we did queue up to enter your live recording, as well as have a journalist here who I'm sure was just there to listen to their report on the quality of the show at the end of it. But don't you know, Drew had the gall to dare kick them out of the event? These 2 innocent little people.
Got tickets to the Drew Barrymore show today. You had no
clue there was a strike.
No clue there was a strike at all. We just got tickets. I mean, we are wearing writers on strike t-shirts. We have badges next to us. The strike's been going for 4.5 weeks, and there's a picket line 2 inches behind us. No clue there was a strike. Yes, we are claiming to be that moronic, and we are Hollywood writers, so there's at least a chance you'll believe us. At this point, it's still a coin toss, if they're telling the truth.
No clue she was changing her statement or anything.
No clue she had a statement. I mean, she's one of the few Hollywood shows which is actually filming right now, who have been on strike for 4.5 months. No clue that she shouldn't be making a TV show. We've actually lived on the planet Pluto for the last 4.5 months, actually. Yeah, got back today. Gorgeous little holiday.
And we showed up and we saw the strike.
Still didn't plan anything wrong. We knew there was a strike going now in our strike t-shirts that we just happened to be wearing.
Given pin.
We took our little buttons.
Yeah,
This is what got us kicked out.
I have no idea why. I wonder why strikers from a picket line going into a live studio recording after the union has been disparaging the show. I don't know why they kick you out.
Kicked out in the middle of everything after signing.
Verbally assaulted by her security officer.
Oh, not verbally assaulted. Oh, that's horrific. How dare a security guard speak to you? I'm disgusted.
Drew Barrymore claims that she cares about her fans and wants her fans to show up for the show.
We had no idea there was a strike going on, but we do know that she's a horrific person who shouldn't be doing this.
And then we get kicked out for supporting what is right.
Oh, now we're supporting it, right? We didn't know it was on. We didn't know it existed. We didn't know she shouldn't be doing it. But now we support everything about taking down that stupid bit. 2 completely innocent people there.
Drew, you should do what is right. Support your writers and support your fans who are supporting your writers.
Now she should do what is right, which means before she was doing something wrong, even though we were going in there to see it, even though we didn't know about any strike. These are people who are supposed to get paid to write fantasy stories, and that's the best one they could come up with.
How are you feeling now?
I'm just really shocked.
Yeah,
to be honest.
it's
I
disheartening.
know she would turn her back like this.
What do you mean you didn't know she was going to turn her back like this? You turned up to go and watch her show. I knew she was doing a show. I didn't know about a strike, but I'm really disappointed that she'd go against the strike that I've been part of for the last 4.5 months. You should have run this through ChatGPT, at least get it to give you a few pointers, mate. We're definitely at a point where Hollywood writing needs to be run through ChatGPT just to have it correct your mistakes.
It's not about us, it's about the writers.
Yes.
Wait, I thought you were the writers. You're wearing writers on strike t-shirts. Did you forget what t-shirts you're wearing? Or are you going to try and claim it's like me pretending we're in Top Gun or something?
Take another run at going to the show?
Probably not.
Nor me, but that's because it's Drew Barrymore, not because she's breaking a strike.
How large of an audience?
I
The
heard
room
the
was pretty
number
packed.
175.
So a lot more than the picket line outside then. But yeah, obviously, when somebody else goes, we're gonna step across this line because we don't really care about your opinion, other people start to do the same when they all realize, hang on, why are we even not working in the first place? We can actually all work because we only agreed not to work as I wanted to virtue signal and take a holiday, and I didn't realize they were going to be such insufferable arseholes for this long. So now, as all of their staff are losing their homes, or because the writers want to maintain ideological control of the writer's room, lots of other people started to work again, as everybody who wasn't began to lose their deals. The issue came when the machine kicked into gear, and Drew started to lose other jobs. Now, admittedly, this is being an award ceremony host, and they're already suffering on their own because of a consistent drop in entries and engagement. So who really cares if you're dropped as a host in a dying industry? Especially when it turns out to be for the National Book Awards? I don't think it's possible for most things, but when it comes to the National Book Awards, yeah, Drew Barrymore might actually be the most prestigious thing about it. But during this, while Drew Barrymore was definitely wearing the pants in the relationship, Bill Maher decided, I don't need to wear those anymore, and it seems just took advantage of Drew taking all the flack. He says, I'm coming back without writers or writing. Not sure anyone will be able to tell the difference. It was unfunny before, it was unfunny afterwards. I think we'll all be fine. But he too said that it was his staff that he was coming back for, and made exactly the same mistake. Talking about the writers. Oh, it's the writers that really matter. And again, if you just come out giving them the V's, at least they'll know that they're not going to be able to break you, because they broke him. No, instead, he spoke about honouring the spirit of the strike by not doing a monologue, a desk piece, new rules or editorial. Instead, it will just be the off-the-cuff panel discussion that aims to cut through the strike and predictable partisanship, and that the show won't disappoint, which just proves there'll be a first time for everything. Of course, the writers, on hearing that he wouldn't be engaging in any written material, called this disappointing, even though it had nothing to do with them. It doesn't matter if you obey their rules. You standing against them already harms their perception of power, and so they have to crush you as well. As expected, Maher's taken a lot of criticism from writers on social media who have been using the word scab to describe the actions. However, will he piss in cope? Please insult me with your one-sided terms that I'm never going to be bothered to look up. Or because you're such bad writers, you're not creative enough to say something that's funny in the first place. If you could kindly insult me with some words that I'm never going to be bothered enough to look up, I would really appreciate it. Now, of course, we had people who say, I take no pressure in this, but I'm the lost coordinator, and the picket lines will be robust and constant. However, will they cope having some 5'4" writers walking in a circle in front of the building? Nobody's going to dare cross that, because they're simply too intimidated by the crushed avocado on toast. The best bit was when he says, bringing your show back helps prolong the strike and hurts everybody. He's not part of your pissing strike, mate. He said no writers are involved. If not having any writers involved prolongs the strike because writers are so unnecessary to the process of creation, may I just suggest that your bargaining position simply isn't as strong as you think it is, and it isn't. Now, the Hollywood Reporter at this bit tried to throw a wrench in the works when they started talking about alphabet representation hits its peak, while officials caution that the strikes can slow progress, to which I can only say, the strike must be full of absolute bigots. How dare you harm representation within your industry? Get back to work. Shame on all of you. Of course, at that point, Drew decided to break. I believe there's nothing I could do or say in this moment to make it okay. Holding back tears in a video posted to Instagram.
Nothing I can do that will make this okay.
Despite coming back with her show that didn't break any of the rules. Now we've got to prostrate ourselves in front of the union and deeply apologise to the writers, despite the fact that none of them were needed in the show. I'm not sure how that's her fault. I deeply apologise to the unions, to me, just implies, what on earth have they been doing to you that makes somebody go through this absolute public struggle session? The show producer even released a statement that said they are very mindful and sensitive to the complex circumstances, and that they were always in full compliance with the labour agreements and any strike rules. But it's never enough, because you can't just obey what they say. You have to forever strengthen the perception that the union has complete and utter control of everything, because if they don't, they have no power at all. That's why this show was particularly damaging, because it was a largely unscripted talk show from the beginning, so the writers had no power, but the union can never seem as if it's got no power. And so they had to get somebody to release an apology video holding back tears, to which I can only say again, what happened backstage to make that happen? Because people don't release tearful apology videos unless something serious has been happening behind the scenes. Not that any of it helped, I mean, it's just somebody crying. She had to take down the apology video later because other celebrities just started to have strong reactions to her decision to return to work. You are undermining union solidarity despite the fact that you're not breaking any union rules. What's interesting is when he goes, Drew Barrymore definitely wants you to know that she's the victim, because in Hollywood, whoever's the victim is the one in power, and so we're all desperate to claim it ourselves, while also claiming that nobody else could possibly be it. Which is why you saw other WGA members start to threaten Bill Maher, saying that she's got a big franchise, and so we'll flick the switch on the comedian next week. I've got so many fans, and I'm going to aim them all at you. It's really horrific, actually. As far as I'm aware, it's against the rules of many platforms to brigade like that. You're not supposed to send people out on witch hunts. And yet, if you're part of a Hollywood union, they think they can do it at will. And as you can see, if she received threats to return, she should have said that and mobilized her fans if she got cancelled. Instead of trying to use her crew as a scapegoat, that crew she's using as a scapegoat, the one that haven't been working for 4.5 months because other people are too lazy to go to work, they have to not work as well in solidarity or something and lose their homes, despite the fact that they want to and can work. That actually does seem like a legitimate victim, somebody who's unable to work because they are being guilt-tripped and blackmailed by people who genuinely are too lazy to work and doing so voluntarily. But no, I mean, she's worth 125 million with the best lawyers, but she chose to cosplay as a victim with crocodile tears as thousands of workers are nearly bankrupt. Yes, her workers. That's why she wanted to go back to work, so her workers could get paid. And I actually don't know how she's cosplaying as a victim when she decides to exercise her own freedom, engage in selling her own labor by creating a TV show, and then gets harassed by various different members of the WGA to the point where she has to release a tearful apology to them. Please, just leave me alone. And then after all that, people wonder why I'm like, so now you just want to move on to destroying the next industry. Whose careers are you going to destroy with this one? So obviously Drew had to back down. I've had to listen to everyone and I'm making the decision to pause until the strike's over. I'm sure that was an entirely voluntary decision that she definitely made for the good of her own crew. She even had to put in I have no words to express my deepest apologies to anyone I have hurt. Apart from your own staff, you haven't hurt anyone, love. But if I was reading it, I definitely would have just been wiping my arse with the WGA logo. Who knows, maybe you could have handed it into Jennifer Sulky for $20 million. It's what the rest of the WGA do. And the funniest thing about the whole Drew deal is the WGA's comment itself when it condemned Barrymore's decision, saying should not have been on the air while her writers are on strike. It's a virtually entirely unwritten show, you numpties. And then they go, in reality, shows like this cannot operate without writing. Oh, aren't you stuck up yourself? We've just incorrectly assumed this thing can't possibly exist because we're the masters of the universe and required in everything. Therefore, because we're required in everything, nothing can actually operate without us. I'd never hire anyone from your guild again, because there are plenty of other writers in the world. And as they're not from California, they might actually be able to write morals that resonate with the audience and therefore make a profit. But she continued her apology, saying, I didn't expect this kind of attention. I wanted to do this because other people's jobs are on the line. And I guess none of those jobs matter anymore because she made a decision. Yes, I could save my crew's jobs, or I could capitulate to a tyrannical organization who's on a power-hungry mission to destroy all of Hollywood. I chose the latter, which I suppose is rather interesting actually, because nowadays if Picard needed to fight the Borg, he would just stand there and get defeated. Oh yes, please just absorb me into your hive mind. They chanted something outside of a building. Obviously individuality doesn't matter anymore. The thing was, even when she apologized and closed the show, there was a little bit of a war that went on between various different WGA members, where there was someone like, well, she's only doing it for self-preservation anyway and to save her entire career, implying that the WGA can actually sink your career, and that was the threat. Whereas others were like, no, she's done the right action. Her actions could have harmed the strike effort, hurt everybody. Yeah, you're hurting everybody, but we don't give a toss about your workers. Only writers that you don't employ, as you have nothing to do with the union on an unscripted show. So every show that crosses the picket line, you can't picket line her show because she doesn't have your writers. If you set up a picket line outside my house, you haven't picket lined my house. I'm not a writer. What you've done there is gotten lost. You've proven that you're too thick to actually understand the bounds of your own union. Of course, the WGA doesn't think there are any bounds on their power, and gives the companies less incentive to return to the table and bargain. Well, if you're so utterly useless that nobody even wants to bargain with you, then have you considered that your demands might actually be inconceivable for any company trying to run an actual business? If nobody wants to bargain with you, maybe it's your fault. But then, obviously, Bill Maher crumbled as well, because it seems like he doesn't have a spine, and his only spine actually comes from other people doing all of the hard work for him. No, the strike has always been very interesting to follow because of the different stages of everything that happens and the power play and power games that people have. And at the end of the day, do I care about Drew Barrymore's TV show? No. But it was interesting because it was the first, and therefore it took all the flack. But it was even more interesting to see all the little people stand up behind her and use her as a human shield, only to vanish off into the the ether the moment that she took too much pressure and crumbled herself. But the big thing was everybody who supposedly cares so much about other people, so much about the workers, not you, no, because whenever you dig into it, the only workers they actually care about is themselves, because of rule number 1. It's always self-interest. But those are just my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know down in the comments below. Like the video if you like the video, subscribe for more videos like this in the future, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.